Howdy, folks. Welcome back or welcome aboard. You are listening to the Saint Cities edition of Doc Owen Show. We are very proud to have you. This is a new show that we started about, this is number 7, I believe. So means it would be our 7th week of doing a once-a-week version totally focused on sanctuary cities and illegal immigration as they feed each other. So we try to connect the dots, make the connection, unless you know what's going on around the country, and, just so you'll be up to date with true information. We are all over the social media as Doc Owen Show, DocOwenShow, where that's our Twitter handle, that's our Facebook page, that's the name of our blog, the docowenshow.com. In addition, and we have apps for both the Apple and Android platforms, and guess what they're called? Doc Owen Show. Real simple. And we have a very special Facebook page called Saint Cities. SAINTCITIES. We will explain to you what a saint city is after we hear from Miss Ima and her inspirational quote for the evening, and a couple of other standard things that we go through right after that. Ms. Surefire, take it away.
And tonight's quote, as usual, for Saint Cities by Doc Owen Show is from pocketfuel.com. That's PKTfuel.com. And tonight's quote comes from the book of Matthew, chapter 18, verse 3. Whoever continually humbles himself to become like this gentle child is the greatest one in heaven's kingdom realm. Just like a child, they understand that learning is not something to be ashamed of, but is something to engage in, celebrate, and embrace. Children are curious. Curiosity is fortified by trust. A holy curiosity, a divine vocation of learning, is empowered by faith. As adults, trust, as is ambiguity, becomes harder each day. Life experiences of disappointments and frustrations lead to challenges for people. We must say no to noise, which is words, clutter, knowing, and yes to silence, which is prayer, unknowing, and trust.
Wow. Pocket Fuels and we got to change the lead into that. Pocket Fuels always provides us with an inspirational paragraph.
Yeah. Not
just a quote, but, quite a bit of background to it.
Yeah, exactly. To explain the scripture. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
so
true.
Before you put it away, review for me the no's and the yeses in terms of the noise, which is a phrase I use often about the noise.
Yeah, that's
okay.
like
We
words,
say no to
words, clutter,
yep,
knowing, like you think you know it all or something,
Yep.
And yes to silence, which is prayer, unknowing, and building trust.
Interesting.
Yes.
Very well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We follow that with the full version from some friends of ours. Complete permission to play this song. And the reason we do it is because of our view of sanctuary cities and America before the hyphens came. Before we were Mexican Americans, before we were Black Americans, before we were Afro, Asian, yada, yada, yada. So listen to the words, enjoy the song, and we will be back right after.
TV on to wake up and clear my head. I catch the news in time to view another stirring of the pot. Talks of inequality and what people need, forgetting what they got. But in these times of opposition, the prejudice runs deep. Dividing us by heritage is all they ever preach. They tell us that they really care. To them it's just a game. 'Cause we were all Americans before the hyphens came. And people cared about who you were and less about your name. 'Cause we were all Americans before the hyphens came. Somewhere down along the line, someone had a great idea. Divide us up by heritage and profit from the fear. But growing up a while back, before the racial trends, whether immigrant, white or black, we just called each other friends. And if we spoke an extra language, it was just another way to pledge allegiance to the flag. God bless the USA. They tell us that they really care. To them it's just a game. 'Cause we were all Americans before the hyphens came. And people cared about who you were and less about your name. 'Cause we were all Americans before the hyphens came.
Before the hyphens came. And last week we followed this immediately with a poem by the Duke, Mr. John Wayne. And the title of the poem was The Hyphen. We're not going to do that this week. We'll give you a break. But I got a feeling we will bring it back next week simply because it fits right here, right now. That's just one of our favorite songs. Before we really get into it, I want to explain to you, and not from me personally, but from one of the centers for immigration. It's not the Center for Immigration Studies, but something similar, an immigration think tank, we will call it. a brief message on what a sanctuary city is, what the standard thought process, or what when people say sanctuary city, this is somewhat an explanation of what they are talking about. So if you'll listen to this brief description, we will be right back to tell you what a saint city is, which is substantially different. Take it away.
Before making a decision on what to do about so-called sanctuary cities, it's important to first understand what they are and what they aren't. Some people are under the impression that a sanctuary city is a place where local government resources are being used to not only actively block federal immigration enforcement, but also to actively harbor and protect people who've violated federal immigration laws. But this couldn't be further from the truth. There is no city and no state in the country with such a policy. None. However, there are dozens of cities and 2 full states with policies that have been labeled as sanctuaries. And here's what they do. In most of the cities, there are expressly written policies or ordinances to ban local law enforcement from arresting people for violations of federal immigration law. This is similar to banning state tax agents from investigating people for violating the U.S. federal tax code. Because federal immigration law falls under federal jurisdiction, a number of these cities have banned local law enforcement from even inquiring about the immigration status of a person they encounter, or informing federal agents of the possible presence of illegal aliens living in their communities. Additionally, 2 states, that's California and Connecticut, have sanctuary city-style laws on the books statewide. Known as the Transparency and Responsibility Using State Tools, or TRUST Act, these laws ban the states from cooperating with or participating in a very narrow area of federal immigration enforcement. Under these state laws, if a person is arrested in the state and is due to be released for whatever they were being held for, they will not be held in custody beyond that time, even if the Federal Department of Homeland Security asks the state to hold them longer for possible immigration violations, which is something that DHS commonly does. More specifically, trust acts are addressing secure communities, a federal program that allows the DHS to access fingerprints taken by local police, to screen detained individuals for immigration status, and to request that local law enforcement agencies hold people for the federal government if they're found to be undocumented. However, what that federal program does not do is provide federal agents to deal with violations of federal law. The federal government, like it does for many federal programs, tries to get states to handle federal enforcement for them, and even foot the bill for it, too. State trust acts and sanctuary city policies expose a serious flaw in federal immigration enforcement tactics and show significant power held by the states over this and other federal programs. As Hans Hermann Hoppe noted in his famous Mises Institute speech titled "What Must Be Done," without local enforcement by compliant local authorities, the will of the central government is not much more than hot air.
So now you know what the standard interpretation of a sanctuary city is. It's a city where local law enforcement have written it into their policies to reduce the cooperation with the federal government in the name of being able to be closer to their citizens and do a better job of their policing. As sanctuary cities came into existence and started to take over the news media as a result of huge influx of illegal immigrants about a year, 18, 24 months ago, I sat on the front porch and contemplated, okay, where is my sanctuary city? Where do we have a sanctuary for the sanctity of life? A sanctuary for peace-loving individuals, be they Christians or atheists or Muslims or whatever, that are just, want to get along with folks. Where do we have a sanctuary for veterans? Where do we have a sanctuary for all of the things that this country is supposed to stand for and did stand for substantially before the hyphens came, before we let the talking heads, as my friends at Madison Rising refer to them, start dividing us and categorizing us so that they could, divide and conquer is sort of the way that I look at it. And we didn't have one, so we came up with the name Saint. And that, by the way, the previous sanctuary city we're talking about, the Doc Owen, Saint Cities by Doc Owen Show, calls scallywags. Sanctuary cities as lawless, looting yappers while aborting government. And if you'll think about it, that's exactly what it is. It's exactly who they are. They're aborting government. The law is there. They're refusing to enforce it. Under whatever guise, they are not enforcing the law. A saint city, on the other hand, is a sanctuary assembled in nature's tradition. Nature's tradition is a reference to God-given rights. They are given to you the minute you are born. And no one should be able to take them away or reduce them. So that's what a saint city is, a sanctuary assembled in nature's tradition. If you'll think about that, I think you'll come to understand the difference between the two and how much more powerful it is, rather than just to say, no, we don't want to be a sanctuary city. You can actually, if you're confronted with the opportunity or given the opportunity, you can actually say, well, yes, I think we should become a sanctuary city, a sanctuary assembled in nature's tradition, a saint city. So go to our Facebook page, Saint Cities, and give us a like, give us a look, tell your friends about it, and join the initiative. We'll get it up to a certain point, and we'll be able to call it a movement. So with that, let's hear from a little 30-second spot from the United States Organization of County Sheriffs and how they feel about it. And we'll take a little pause from one of our advertisers and be right back.
America needs to enforce its immigration laws.
Nobody understands that better than your local sheriffs.
We see the impact of illegal immigration every day.
We see firsthand the dangers of open borders, sanctuary cities,
and criminal aliens released back on the street.
We are your local sheriffs, charged with keeping America safe.
But we need the President and Congress to do their part and start enforcing immigration laws.
Lives are depending on it.
Paid for by the Federation for American Immigration Reform.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 877-212-5898. Again, 877-212-5898. That's 877-212-5898. 877-212-5898.
Howdy, folks. Welcome back, or welcome aboard if you're just joining us. You're listening to Saint Cities by Doc Owen Show, and we are glad that you're here. Before I have an interview that I'm going to play for you with a very close friend of the show. If you listen to Doc Owen Show or have for any time at all, you'll know that occasionally we have a gentleman on by the name of Nico LaHood. Nico is the district attorney here in Bexar County, and we get the opportunity to sit down with him quite often and talk topics, current events as well as background. One of the conversations that we had with him, and I'll tell you why I'm bringing it up tonight, because we attended the Doc Owen Show was in full force at the KSAT 12 debate watch party last night, and at least a bit of the conversation was about immigration, and there are various opinions in the room, and it also came up about Trump not wanting to allow any Muslims in, and I remember Donald Trump saying something about Hillary Clinton not being willing to say the words radical Islamic terrorists.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That she just refused to say it, and that's his problem. Mm-hmm. And actually, he was right, because in her response, I don't remember her using the term. She switched it to Muslim. And she referred to Islam in the point that she said we're not at war with Islam, but she continued to talk about Muslims, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Two things to note about that. You cannot be an Islamist, and you cannot believe, in radical Islam or be a dedicated Islamist without being a Muslim, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. But you can be a Muslim and disavow the rules and regulations imposed upon these hardcore Islamists. So there's a very distinct difference, and when you shift the language, you shift the conversation from the term Islam to the term Muslim, you must understand what you are doing. You must understand the difference between the two in order to come to a logical, well-informed decision. But rather than me tell you how to do that, I will let Mr. LaHood tell you how to do that, because he's the one that taught us. So if you will listen up, I think you'll be better informed and better armed when it comes to a conversation about immigration from Syria, this latest run of immigration we've got, and Mr. Trump's desire to better vet them. So, Ms. Surefire, will you play Mr. LaHood for us, please?
Sure thing.
Has been working hard on passing Sharia law, and
Are you serious?
Yes, sir.
See, that kind of crap drives me insane.
I knew it would. He's a lawyer who sells passports. He sells.
Nobody asks the right questions. When you get drawn into a discussion about Muslims, it's a red herring. Don't get in. I tell people, don't get into a. We all know peaceful Muslims.
Right.
I have a dear friend of mine.
I've got why I don't even use the word based on.
I have a dear friend of mine who is labeled a Muslim. Right.
Yeah.
He wears that label. And I went to him. I said, you don't know him. His name is Gino. And I trust him with my kids. And I've known him for 2 decades. I go, Gino, what do you think about Sharia law? He goes, what's that, Baba? I go, what do you mean, what's that? He goes, what's Sharia law? I go, you serious? You don't know what Sharia law is? That's a nucleus of what you... And I told him what it is because he has a little daughter that he was crazy about. He's a great daddy. And he said, F that. I won't say the word. He goes, there's no way in hell I would ever let that happen to my daughter. I go, I get it. He's like, well, my daddy's Catholic and my mom was Muslim. And so he's an Americanized person version that wears a label that doesn't understand the mentality and the
just
ideology.
Like the officer that died fighting. We
don't know. So he's wearing a label.
Right.
I don't know what that means. I mean, it's just like someone saying, "Oh, look at that Christian committed this crime." Well, they're not following any Christian tenets. if there's some dumbass that blows up an abortion clinic, you cannot rely on scripture to justify that behavior. You just can't.
No.
I don't care what anybody says.
No.
If you belong to the Westboro Baptist, those idiots, and you have signs on the corner saying God hates whatever, what scripture? Show me the scripture that you're following. So just because people wear a label, I don't listen. I go, let's get deeper. Let's peel the onion back. Let's not be so rhetoric driven, and let's not worry about labels. Let's talk about tenets. I never talk about Muslims. That is irrelevant. Being a Muslim is irrelevant to me. Now let's talk about Islam. That's a different ballgame.
Right.
I would ask that daddy, Mr. Khan, what are your position on Sharia law? Do you renounce Sharia law? Do you renounce ISIS and the Taliban and Hezbollah? Do you renounce the Muslim Brotherhood? Right. And if he says no, then everything he says is null and void to me. None.
I agree.
Zero.
I agree.
I don't understand why it's that hard. It's that difficult. Look, I'll give you my opinion now. I don't care what people think about it. This is my opinion. I am not supportive of bringing in a bunch of refugees without any type of background check, and we cannot background check them. There's no way. And whenever someone says, how can you take that position? I go, well, let me ask you about your position. Here, and write this, tell everybody that supports bringing in 500% more refugees, okay, or as many as they want, I ask them the same question so there's no trick attack. How many homeless people do you have in your home? Oh, 0. Why? So you want to bring homeless people to our country, which is our home, but you have none in your home. Okay. Do you lock your door? You do. Why do you lock your door? Because you don't want people coming in without your permission and under your terms. Do you have a fence around your yard? Oh, you do. Why? Do you live in a gated neighborhood? Oh, really? Why? Do you see my point? The hypocrisy is insane. Do I believe, for me personally, as a Christian, we should help refugees if they are truly being treated the way they're being? Yes, we should set up an asylum in their country. I think as a world community, we come together, we spend resources, we protect them, and we let them, we establish safe zones where they're at. Because they're coming over here, none of them are making allegiance to our Constitution. No, who's going to pay for them? What do we do next? What's happened? They don't have a language. There's no acclimation to our culture. We're not going to adjust to their culture. They need to adjust to our culture. My grandfather did it when he came over from Lebanon. My mom's great-great-great-grandparents, when they came from Mexico, we're all immigrants. I get it.
Yep.
Unless you're Native American, you're an effing immigrant. Okay, How about that? Write that down. But we've got to do it the right way. And under today's standards, we know that we are targets. I don't get it. It's not that hard. Everybody, it's all fun and games until it applies to them.
Right.
And it's a real common sense analysis. I mean, it's not to be mean. I just care about your kids. I care about your grandkids. I care about everybody's kids and I don't want anybody to go through what my family's gone through, losing a loved one to violent crime, regardless of the source of the violence.
Right.
I don't want anybody to go through that.
Right.
And we're seeing it over and over again, and we're letting our guard down because when you combine deception with political correctness, then you have France. Then you have Germany.
Right.
And all someone has to do is study Europe. Just study Europe.
Right. I did
I get it drives me insane, man.
Why do you think I asked you?
Well, you probably set me up. You guys are feeding meat to the sharks, right? No, but I think it's reasonable.
It is reasonable. I want the young people that we talk to, want them to hear the passion in your voice, because you're a bright young man. I'm an old guy that it's too easy for them to go, there he goes again.
I promise you, you look at Germany and France and England and all why do you think that Brexit vote was? You really think that was about economy?
No way.
That was them trying to take their culture back.
Absolutely, that's what it was.
Look, and that is not a slight towards a group of people. That's a slight towards an ideology.
Yeah.
Any ideology. If Christianity stood for what Islam stands for, I wouldn't be a Christian.
No,
I wouldn't be a Christian. I would not be a Christian.
Right.
I mean, and when you look at if all it takes is for someone to truly, without blindfolders, forget your political agendas on either side.
Right.
Just study Sharia law.
Study it.
Study the Quran, study the Hadith, and study the Sirah.
Right.
These are the three texts of Islam.
And then get back to it.
And then we'll talk. If you study it, then we can talk. Because if you haven't studied it, then I'm talking with a certain understanding. The other person is talking with another understanding.
Right.
I keep my mouth shut in my personal life until I study an issue, and then I get educated, and then I have a dialogue.
Right.
And then we can agree to disagree or agree to agree. It's okay. But when you start insulting, you didn't hear me insult one person right now.
No.
But what I do is I am militant against evil. Militant.
Nice word.
And let me tell you this. Under Sharia law, and this you can look it up, even Sharia scholars will tell you, they kill homosexuals. Whether you support the homosexual lifestyle or not is irrelevant.
Yeah.
The people are precious, and God loves them. And I did a post on my Facebook about it. And you saw the post.
Yes, sir.
And so they kill them. I would never stand for that. Women are treated like property. Yeah. They can be beaten for insubordination. They don't inherit land or property like men do. Yes. They believe in genital mutilation because they're not supposed to enjoy sex.
Right.
They can only marry one man. The man can marry 4 women.
Right.
I mean, they can't testify in their own rape trial. A woman can't even be raped, Doc, unless she has the witness of 4 men. That's insanity. I have 2 daughters. You would have to take my last breath before I stand back and let that happen to one of my children or to your children.
Right.
All of us feel the same way. Women have value. I mean, to my God, to in the Christian beliefs, women are extremely valued. They're precious.
You're just going off. You're just doing the short list.
Oh man, that was a clip note version. I mean, it's worse. And so when people are trying to set up and argue for Sharia courts to displace the Constitution, that is insanity.
I know it is.
Go start your own country.
I totally know that it is.
And then here's what I challenge young people to do: study our founding fathers. Study the Mayflower Compact. Study this stuff. You need to study and know what our foundation is, and then make your own opinion of it.
That's exactly what Trump should have done before he fired back. And then
Trump's style he's not my style. Look, I mean,
there's no.
He's not.
It's all his own. But the point is,
he's not wrong. He's not wrong in a lot of things. He's wrong in some things. He's not wrong in everything.
He's got pretty good instinct.
Yeah,
he's got very good instinct.
I just encourage people to follow truth, and if you follow truth. If truth leads you to Hillary, then God bless you. Right. If truth leads you to Trump, that's fine. But guess what? It doesn't matter who it is. If we don't get national security right, if we don't get this issue with Islam,
there's some things going on that are critical. Irrespective of
if we don't get it right, I don't care what your opinion is on abortion, on same-sex marriage, on any other issue.
Yeah.
If we don't get immigration and refugee and national security and Islam,
it's all together. For me.
None of it matters if we don't get that right. We have to get that right.
Yeah,
have to.
Yeah. And it's soon.
It's what?
Soon. We have to get it right soon. Very soon.
Oh, like immediately. Right. I mean, we do. And so here's what I tell people.
Right.
I don't talk politics unless it's personal one-on-one because of my position. I mean, I'm here to be the DA and Lady Justice wears a blindfold. And so I talk on issues. If you ask me my opinion about an issue, I'll talk about the issue.
I'm pretty good about that, right?
No, you do. Well, I'm not going to advocate for a candidate.
No. I don't.
I'm going to talk about, but I wouldn't anyway, even if you did. I'm going to talk about an issue. I'm just telling you, don't get offended. Look at him. He's so sensitive over here. But I'm going to talk about issues. So here's what I tell people. Whatever your worldview is, ask yourself the why you think you take a position on an issue. And then once you can answer the why to yourself and articulate it to somebody else, then you match up what you believe on an issue with the candidate.
With who?
And go down the line. And then you're going to prioritize, this issue is primary to me. Then here's the secondary issue. Then here's the third issue. And then you have to prioritize. Because no candidate's going to agree with you on every issue. So whether you're Republican and you're like all in for whatever Republican candidate, or you're a Democrat and you're all in for whatever Democratic candidate is there, you can't tell me that you agree with everything that any candidate does on either side. Come on. So you have to make this analysis.
I'm not sure I agree with everything that you...
You probably don't. Yeah, you might not. I don't know.
What I'm saying?
Yeah, maybe not. We don't know.
We've not hit it.
We'll get there soon.
We will.
And then we'll have a nice debate for the audience.
Duke it out a little bit.
Yeah, man.
I know you need to go to work, and I appreciate your time.
No, it's a pleasure, Dave.
You know, these are very, very meaningful.
Well, I'm not short of opinions.
To the audience.
Well, I want
you to know that the feedback is...
I'm humbled by that.
Is way too strong. I have to tone it down. I say, no, he's really not that good.
Well, I'm humbled. And all joking aside, I'm humbled by that. Look, I've been through some life. I've made some poor choices in my life.
You're a good man, dude.
For whatever reason, God saw value in me and said, man, son, if you'll give me your best, if you'll change the way you think, I can redeem your life. 2 years later, my brother was stolen from us in my parents' driveway. I've shared that with you. I loaded his body on the gurney. I know what it's like to hear your mama cry. I know what it's like to be just entangled in anger and rage and to have it show in your life. And I know what it's like to be in a prison of rage and then the world telling you, I don't blame you. And I can talk about that later in another talk when we have more time. And for me to have peace now And
it's
so
the I don't blame you part.
Well, that's what the world tells you.
I know.
Yeah, they tell you. And you could have not blamed me all you want, but I still would have been a miserable SOB, and I would have never reached my God-given potential. When I surrendered, when I said my way sucks, I got to do something else, and I started really pursuing truth, pursuing peace, because you wait for it, it ain't going to come. You have to pursue it. God will meet you halfway. In my life, this is my testimony.
I remember when I had that moment. I get it.
And you get freed. I've been freed from the prison of anger.
Hi, I'm George Foreman. Do you have an idea for a new product or invention? People ask me all the time, George, how do I get my idea in front of companies? How do I get a patent? What do I do next? Do you have the same questions? I'll tell you like I'll tell them all. Call my friends at InventHelp.
Call InventHelp today for free information. InventHelp can submit your invention to companies who are interested in receiving new ideas.
Call 1-800-352-3127. Again, 1-800-352-3127. A fee-based company.
Howdy, folks. Welcome back or welcome aboard. Hopefully you're not just joining us because you missed a lot of valuable information up front, but thankfully this is a podcast, always available on our app for both the iPhone and Android, as well as the 3 largest internet radio networks that are out there, and our home base of Spreaker.com. So you can go back and get caught up on the front part of it. Just before the ad, you listened to, hopefully, a conversation that we had with District Attorney Nico LaHood about the difference, and I'm going to say it this way, the radical difference between Islam and Muslim, an Islamist. And he encourages you, as do I, to stay away from being sucked in to think that Muslims, or talking about Muslims when you really mean Islamist. There is very much a difference. Mm-hmm. And if you get into a discussion with someone on that particular topic as it relates to immigration or anything else, but mostly as it relates to immigration, be sure that you are using the right terms and that your person on the opposing side is as well. Got some highlights here that I feel like you need to know. Here's one that the top of the article says, Latino voter registration spike in North Carolina. Latinos in North Carolina are registering to vote in unprecedented numbers, raising the prospects that they could swing the state in favor of Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump. You got a civic media organization called Vote Latino that's focused on engaging Latino millennials, has registered nearly 109,000 voters across the country this year. So it goes on to say there's a fellow here by the name of Hector Vaca, V-A-C-A, the director for Action NC in Charlotte, said the state's Hispanic population grew by 110% between 2000 and 2010 and now accounts for 2% of registered voters. He also went on to say that every vote will matter this year as another close vote takes place. We've seen a difference this election. A lot more people are motivated to vote because of all this hateful rhetoric. What he's referring to is Trump's rhetoric. He goes on to say that Latino voters in North Carolina are sadly no strangers to the anti-immigrant agenda of Donald Trump and his party, said Vaca. It's making it easier to register voters. Just like the difference between Islam and Muslim, you need to understand and know the truth, the absolute truth about what Donald Trump said. If you leave out the word illegal in front of immigrant, then you are misstating what he said. You are misstating what the Republican Party thinks. And you're certainly misstating what the Doc Owen Show thinks. It's about the illegal immigrant, not the immigrant. Period.
That's right.
And, of course, these folks registering the Latinos, as they refer to them in this article, which I don't know about you guys, but I find that offensive. that and I don't know what's supposed to be politically correct. I live in San Antonio, Texas. We're just sort of all in this together. We are beyond hyphens down here. Luckily, we don't refer to it as hyphenated anything. But the point is that Trump was against, and still is against, as are a lot of us, against illegal immigrants. And I would submit to you, and it almost states it right here. It says Mexican consulates in the United States can issue all Mexican citizens a form of identification, often the only one available to undocumented immigrants. I would like to know how many of these 109,000 that have been registered to vote are American citizens. There's a lot of places where you don't have to show a valid U.S. ID in order to register to vote, thanks to the Supreme Court and various activist groups. Here's something. Trump claims illegals are pouring into the U.S. to vote. You know, it's one of those things where you really need, he has excellent instinct. He has good information. He has time and time and time again been beat up, shot down, accused of this and accused of that. And after about 2 to 3 to maybe at the most 5 days of the news cycle, oh, Mr. Trump was right. Well, let's move on and find something else to pick on him about. And this may well be one of those situations. The new surge of illegal immigration at the southern border is being driven by the United States election and the related debate over whether to ease or tighten immigration laws, according to representatives of border agents and border state sheriffs. Now, these are the guys that are on the ground. They know the difference. What they're saying is the immigration influx that's coming in, no matter who wins, there's a reason to go ahead and get in here. And we're not talking about legally, we're talking about illegally, just being in the United States. If Hillary wins, they're anticipating some sort of amnesty. They're anticipating, some way that if they're already here, they'll get their citizenship a whole lot faster, or at least be given some temporary card, allowed to work and allowed to participate and not shipped back home. And if Trump wins, they definitely want to be here before he builds that wall, because none of them think that we have the capability to deport them. It's one of those deals like we grew up with in high school. If we got a big enough, gang to go follow the donut truck around, they can't possibly arrest us all. Guess what? Yes, they can. Mm-hmm. Particularly if you're all riding in the same car.
That's funny.
Yeah, well, we only had one guy in the class that had a car, so we were kind of dead meat. But anyway, the border police, the border cops, as they're referred to in this article, are right on the money in terms of what they say the drivers are that are pulling them across the border in record numbers right now, as they're trying to get ahead of the election and ahead of anything that might happen either way. And they're also saying that barely half of the illegal border crossers are caught, and that's a Homeland Security report. That entered the U.S. illegally from Mexico last year, barely half of the people were caught, according to a report commissioned by the Department of Homeland Security. The report found 54% of people who entered illegally between border crossings got caught in the 2015 fiscal year. And that is much lower than the 81% success rate that Homeland Security cited publicly using a different counting method. So in other words, you're being told by the mainstream media that they're catching 81%. No, they're not. No, they're not. The border agents are telling you they're catching 54%. And I would far trust them before it got filtered through the political cycle of a bureaucrat up in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, well, sure. They're the ones doing the work.
That's right. They've got the real numbers. And here Trump says the Border Patrol ordered to let immigrants illegally cross border to vote in the election. Seizing on comments from a Border Patrol union leader, Donald Trump said Friday, that would be this past Friday, that agents have been told to allow immigrants into the United States illegally so they can vote in the election, unquote. But he offered no evidence to support his most recent claim that presidential voting may be tainted by fraud. Yeah, it's kind of hard to offer evidence until after the vote, unless you find a warehouse full of illegal pre-printed ballots like they did up in Chicago. Tens of thousands of pre-printed Democrat ballots. Amazing. So in a roundtable on border security, Trump responded to comments from Art Del Cueto, a vice president for the National Border Patrol Council, who told the candidate that officials in the U.S. are being directed to ignore immigrants' criminal histories and speed up citizenship applications. Do you hear that? They're being directed to do this by a higher up, by a higher authority, someone in the current administration. Trump knows what he's talking about. There's a fellow on the radio by the name of Mark Levin. You may have heard him. You may have listened to him. I like his books. His voice, I just when he gets super excited, it just drives me crazy. But he has some good things to say. And he was talking about the fact that California is completely gone. We've lost it. It is basically no longer a member of the United States, because now they've got not only are they registering illegals to vote, but they're also going to extend Obamacare to the illegals. They are completely immersed in, I've got another article, hopefully we'll get to it, that talks about the percentage of illegals in California.
That's crazy.
Yep. Okay, yeah, we'll probably get to it. Here's just so you'll know that we're doing our best to be a bit fair and balanced, if you will. Here's an article that talks about why sanctuary cities make sense. A federal court rules that one type of collaboration between immigration authorities and local law enforcement is unlawful. So there is no city in the U.S. that can prevent immigration and customs enforcement from deporting an undocumented immigrant. They can, however, keep local policing and federal immigration enforcement separate by asking local police to decline detainers, which is exactly what we explained to you in the beginning of the show. These detainers are a non-binding request from ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, asking for extended detention of inmates they suspect are deportable. That's why the so-called sanctuary, and that's what the so-called sanctuary cities do. But around 39 U.S. cities is what this article says. I think it's greater than that. Have such rules on the books. In other words, they ignore those requests from ICE. It's, despite reforms in 2014, at least half of the ICE detainers issued in the first 2 months of 2016 named individuals with no criminal convictions, and therefore they were ignored. Amazing. So when we bash the federal government for not doing their job, part of it across the country is because we don't help them do their job. We've got to work this thing together. And the reason you're hearing about immigration, mostly about illegal immigration, totally about illegal immigration, is that's what feeds sanctuary cities. That's what feeds the scallywag version of a sanctuary city. I mean, that's basically what it is all about, is the protection. For one reason or another, they pull on your heartstrings. They talk about, it's inhumane and all of the things that we need to do to help these folks, have a better life. No doubt about it. If you just go right back across that river and take a number, we'll be more than happy to accommodate you. And by the way, while you're over there, you might study a little bit of English, and you might learn a little bit about our customs, traditions, and laws. And then by the time your number is called to come across the river, you will be a whole lot better at assimilating into our society, and we will be a whole lot happier to have you and offer you one of those good-paying jobs that you're asking for. It's just not that hard, other than the fact that it's not happening fast enough to suit the number of people who want to come into this country. I get that, but that's a completely different problem. That's a completely different situation. It's about the illegal aspect of it. It's totally what this is about. Here's another article that says, immigration boosts the bottom line. And it's talking about Governor Daniel Malloy. It says Daniel Malloy likes to fight. And he's taking on Indiana Governor Mike Pence, now vice presidential candidate Mike Pence. He's been after him for months. And during the debate between vice presidential candidates, Malloy took a few shots on Twitter, saying that in refusing to admit Syrian refugees, among other things, Pence was the perfect pairing for the dangerously extreme Donald Trump. His words were vindicated a day later when a federal court ruled that Pence's refusal to take refugees was discriminatory. He was refusing to take them into Indiana, as is Governor Abbott here in Texas. But I don't know whether Governor Pence did it in his refusal or not. Governor Abbott did it in the Texas refusal, and that was until they have been vetted. It's, these guys that are on the side of bringing in illegals and bringing in cheap labor and getting away with things always have this really unique habit of leaving out a word or two when they describe immigrants. Oh, undocumented workers. They don't like the term illegal immigrant. They want us to call them undocumented workers. No, they're illegal immigrants.
Mm-hmm. Period.
End of discussion. And the other piece of it is, it's like, and the same thing applies to not letting in the Syrians or not letting in the Muslims. How many radical Islamist terrorists do we know that are Mexican citizens? Exactly. None. 100% of them, let's not say that. A very large percentage, probably over 90%, are from the Middle East or have Middle Eastern heritage. Mm-hmm. That's where radical Islam, that's the birthplace, that's the Mecca for it, and they're erupting out of there at a faster pace than anybody can take them in. Faster pace than anybody can. There is no documentation over there.
It's like an oil that's spreading.
You have no way of knowing who they are, where they came from, what their daddy did. Rut-row. Time to go. You have been listening to the Doc Owen Show. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. Now go out there this week and take care, pay attention, and God bless.
Bye-bye, folks. God bless.